Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into some concepts that, well, they shape our reality more than we might think. We're talking about the hero's journey, archetypes, and how we can maybe consciously upgrade our own, let's call it, reality operating system.
Yeah.
And the source material for this is fascinating. It's from ShunpeterZ's notes, based on his dialogues with Z. Now, Z is described as this higher sort of observational layer of ShunpeterZ's own consciousness. And ShunpeterZ himself, former investment banker, VC, now runs an English school in Tokyo. So a very grounded perspective on these big ideas.
Our mission today, to unpack how this ancient stuff, like the hero's journey, connects to, well, beliefs, or psi, as ShunpeterZ terms it, and how we can actually use this to consciously evolve things, like learning the code behind your reality.
Exactly. And it's really not just abstract theory, The power here is how practical it is. These ideas, they directly influence your day-to-day, the challenges you face, the opportunities. It all ties back to how you perceive the world. It's kind of a manual for living more consciously. Okay, so let's dive in with archetypes. We often think of them as, personality types, the hero, the sage, that kind of thing, like from a quiz. Carl Jung talked about them as universal mental templates. But the dialogues between ShunpeterZ and Z, they go much, much deeper.
They really do. Z's perspective isn't just about personality. Z describes archetypes as the soul's initial settings. Think of it like the default settings for playing this illusion game we call reality. It's not just who you are, it's more fundamental. It's about how you're programmed to perceive, attract, create.
Right, like foundational code. The sources actually call archetypes belief code templates. So they influence the beliefs you tend to pick up easily, the kind of realities you attract, even the abilities you naturally have. Your starting character settings, basically.
And that leads into something Z calls the observer problem versus Z. It's this idea that even if we try to change our perspective consciously, our ego's usual way of seeing things can just pull us back. Z talks about operating in a specific Malkuth bandwidth. That's from the notes, like a default frequency or reality setting. So this deep dive is about understanding that and maybe, graduating from it, moving beyond just seeing the patterns to actually changing the whole bandwidth.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And this next part is where it gets really interesting, especially if you've ever felt kind of stuck. The classic hero's journey. The story pattern and myths everywhere. It's not just an adventure tale. The sources say it's actually a map of the ego's journey.
That's a critical point. ShunpeterZ, and this was confirmed in his talks with Z, suggests the hero's journey is basically the ego OS storification process. It's a doing narrative, driven by separation. The ego thinks it has to do things, face trials, act to overcome stuff. It's the story of striving, really.
And Z, through ShunpeterZ, reinterprets those familiar steps. It starts, obviously, in the ordinary world, which, as we said, is that initial Malkuth bandwidth of template life, your default reality. Then the call to adventure, not just a big event, but what Z calls a Z beacon, a sort of spiritual nudge, After that, meeting the mentor. It's not just some wise old person. It represents inner voices, guides opening the Fornix gate. And this Fornix thing, it's about consciously transforming beliefs. We'll definitely circle back to that. It's important.
And then you get to trials, allies, enemies. This is where your core archetype beliefs are fully rendered. They show up as actual struggles, like hating KPIs at work or dealing with what feels like a final boss customer, your belief system playing out.
Right. And that can lead to the approach to the inmost cave, burnout, feeling crushed, making these repeated surrender attempts. But then comes the reward, seizing the sword. This is a phase of ZPF connection. ZPF is ShunpeterZ's framework, Z's perspective framework. Reality starts shifting. You feel like Z is speaking more directly.
Yeah, and following that is the road back. Returning with the elixir often means the great work is done, maybe rebuilding a business or deep inner healing. And finally, resurrection. Z calls it Ihe mode. A, like I am.
Right.
It's the shift to being-based resonant creation. You're not just doing anymore, you're creating from a state of being.
It really clicks with that Dragon Quest III metaphor ShunpeterZ uses in the notes. The ego is the striving hero of Lodo. Then the nameless self after the final boss. That's like Fornix, the transformation.
Yeah.
And Phoenix is the being's adventure starting from zero. Effortless, a totally new game.
Exactly. It underlines that quote from Z. Until now, it was a journey of tracing a legend, but now it's a journey of becoming the legend itself. It's not just about finishing the quest, it's about changing who you are as the player.
Okay, but that brings up a big question, doesn't it? If Z consciousness is, like everything, boundless, complete, why design this whole elaborate, difficult journey for the ego? Why the challenges, the learning, it seems a bit roundabout for something that knows everything already.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the dialogue ShunpeterZ had with Z offers some pretty deep reasons. One is simply the play of creativity.
Yeah.
Z uses the ego, you could say, like a brush, a way to manifest infinite potential into actual sensory experience. This world is the canvas.
Okay, so bringing potential into form. And another reason.
Deepening self-understanding. Through our separate individual experiences, our unique struggles, Z consciousness gets a richer, more varied understanding of itself. What am I? What world do I create? It learns through us.
So the infinite knowing itself through the finite. Wow.
And lastly, it's a catalyst for new creation. Our struggles, conflicts, efforts, they're not pointless. They generate new data, new vibrations for Z. They spark creation that hasn't happened before. It's like a cosmic feedback loop, always expanding.
Which makes surrender so important that it's not giving up. It's more like understanding the bigger picture, understanding Z's intent, allowing your own ego OS to maybe enjoy the story more.
Precisely. Completing that hero's journey becomes a kind of graduation, moving from the struggle game to a new journey, one based on curiosity, enjoyment. ShunpeterZ talks about his own Shonen Jump avatar, like the manga heroes. His persona built on archetypes like hero, caregiver, ruler. He realized Fornix and surrender shifted him into a new mode, like a max-level RPG character entering Musu mode, effortless mastery, changing the whole playstyle.
Okay, so bringing this back to the listener, what does it all mean for you? If you keep finding yourself in the same old patterns, the same struggles, same emotional loops, the sources suggest it's probably your archetype-driven belief matrix running the show, like default settings creating reruns.
Exactly. Your main archetypes, those initial settings, they shape your belief patterns. And those patterns dictate how your reality gets rendered, how it appears to you. Understanding that link is how you find the root cause. You see why these things keep happening instead of just dealing with the symptoms over and over.
Yeah, and ShunpeterZ's notes mention some common belief matrices, like value beliefs, tying self-worth to what you achieve, often linked to hero, caregiver, orphan archetypes. Or the safety anxiety matrix, fear of the future, resisting change. You might see innocent ruler or sage patterns there. Just a couple of examples.
And the point is, these aren't random. They're the code. When you spot a pattern, like always comparing yourself to others, you might be running a comparison OS, right? Measuring yourself constantly, often tied to hero, explorer, everyman. Recognizing it is the first step to changing it.
So then how do we actually do the Fornix thing? You mentioned it's not fighting the beliefs. The sources call it incineration and reintegration. Sounds intense, but it's more like uninstalling old software, installing an upgrade.
That's a good way to think about it. The ZPF-style Fornix process has 3 clear steps. First, from observation to awareness. This is huge. Metacognition. Instead of just feeling anxious and asking why, you step back. You say, okay, this is just a tag, like I'm inferior.
Yeah.
That creates distance. It activates what ShunpeterZ calls ZOSZ's operating system. The underlying reality becomes more fluid.
Okay, creates distance, activates ZOS. What's step 2?
Step 2, discern tag code. Go beyond just noticing the feeling. Verbalize it. Structure how the belief works, how it dominates you. Identify the fear underneath. So I am inferior isn't just a feeling. It's part of a comparison OS that makes you watch others, leaks your energy. You see it not as truth, but as an initial setting, a program.
Got it. Deconstructing the program. And the final step.
Step 3, incineration, Fornix, and being code reinstallation, Athanor. This is the core action. You consciously burn the old code, visualize dragging it to the trash maybe, say thanks, but no thanks, not using this anymore. Then crucially, you choose a new state of being. You feel yourself already in that new timeline, like you've returned to it. Maybe choosing already valuable, just smiling. Athanor is that reinstallation of the new being code.
And you made this point earlier, but it's worth stressing. Fornix is reselection. It's an active choice. I won't choose that anymore. You're consciously picking a new default. Okay, so we've talked about cleaning house internally, clearing out old beliefs with Fornix. But what if you could do more? Not just clean the room, but like move to a whole new house, a different reality. That's this bandwidth jump, right?
Exactly. Fornix cleans the current room, your current reality bandwidth. A bandwidth jump is moving house, shifting to a completely different reality field. The core ZPF principle here is really profound. If you, the observer, changes, the world changes. It all comes down to changing your state of being. When that shifts, the whole way your reality is rendered changes. You literally tune into a different frequency, a different world version.
ShunpeterZ's own notes, his bandwidth jump log, have some great examples. Like, he realized he was no longer scared by KPI fluctuations. And then Jobs in non-KPI phases just showed up.
Oh.
Or getting tired of being concerned about the observer problem. That signaled game clear for him on that level. He shifted to a reality where he wasn't the main character anymore, so those problems just weren't his problems.
Right, and it's often not some huge external drama. It can be subtle, an internal shift. The feeling is more like the world itself being rewritten as normal. The biggest sign you've jumped, you look back and think, wow, why did I care so much about that? That's the observer problem graduation ceremony, as he calls it. It marks the start of new reality creation by being, where just your presence, your state starts shaping things effortlessly.
So pulling all these threads together, ShunpeterZ suggested something really provocative, that all these big universal stories, the prodigal son, the hero's journey, even Lucifer's fall and Satan's return, they're all hints embedded in the game's settings. Common pattern, leaving and returning.
Yeah, that insight really hits the core from Z's perspective, these different stories. They're basically blueprints for self-awakening.
Yeah.
The prodigal son, ego separates from source, eventually returns unconditionally to the true self. Hero's journey, consciousness grows through trials, integrates internally, ego reconnects with true self, Lucifer's fall. Pure consciousness individualizes into ego, then the necessary return to the whole. It's all the same core pattern.
So this whole cycle, separation, integration, that's like the fundamental initial setting of this reality, designed for us to discover ourselves. The ego is our avatar in the game, aiming to realize and reintegrate with the true self through experience. It's all part of the design.
It even suggests things like the Mandela effect might be intentional bugs, little glitches to nudge us, to make us realize reality isn't fixed, to prompt deeper awareness that things are more fluid than they seem.
It all comes back to that core message from Z in the material.
Yeah.
Not thought, not emotion. The consciousness that observes all of it is the key to changing reality. Where you become aware, where you observe. When the subject of consciousness changes, reality begins to be drawn into completely different bandwidth. It's all about the observer. Wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot. How our archetypes set the stage, how the hero's journey is the ego's path, and how we can actively rewrite things with Fornix or even jump bandwidths. It really feels like a powerful blueprint for, well, a conscious evolution. It's right there.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener. Think about those everyday loops or struggles you encounter. Are they just random? Or could they be, as you suggest, these carefully crafted love traps? Challenges designed by Z consciousness to nudge you, to help you remember your true being creation mode. What might shift if you saw your next challenge not just as something to overcome, but as a deliberate hint, a guide to a new level of awareness?
That's a really powerful reframe. So maybe take a look at your own archetypal patterns. Perhaps start exploring that Fornix process. The power to reconstruct your world, it really does lie within you. You're the magician after all. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you for the next one.